Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. For centuries, our kind has stayed hidden on Earth, but darkness has found us again. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering a world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, and gaming. Joining me for today's spoiler-free review, there's more than meets the eye with this fellow geekster. I'm pretty sure he could transform into a giant pot plant, the good kind. Mr. Darcy Hudson, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Darcy, I got to know, Transformers been around for a really long time. We've got cartoons, we've got, comics, we've got movies. How have you enjoyed Transformers in the past? What is your go-to for enjoying the Transformers franchise?
Well, one of the reasons why I was so excited for this film was the fact that one of my first memories of Transformers is Beasties or Beast Wars, and that was my first introduction. I had Cheetor toy, I had Rhinox, I had all the things. Can never transform them to save my life, of course, because they're always impossible.
Right.
But that was where I first introduced to it, and after that, I of course went out and watched the original animated series. As I got older, I started reading the comics and stuff like that. So the Transformers have always been interesting to me because there is so much more to them than being these transforming robots. They have some really cool and impactful storylines that, again, are just I'm a sucker for a good story, so I don't care what media it's in. I'll consume it if I like it. So yeah, definitely the Beast Wars, though. That's where it started.
Yeah, I think that was my cartoon, because like when the originals were out, I think it was like after 85. I was probably like 2 or 3. I definitely wasn't exposed to that, and I know as I got older, I was probably introduced to it through my cousins and stuff who were older, but it never really stuck. But yeah, you're right, the toys stuck. I remember having an Optimus truck when I was younger. Either it was mine or it was someone else's. I can't remember. But I remember playing with that. But you're right. Beasties or Beast Wars. So to clarify, we are Canadian. In Canada, it is called Beasties. It's not called Beast Wars. In the States, in the United States, they call it Beast Wars. But here in Canada, because it was running on a kids channel, YTV, the channel for any of us retro kids, they had to call it something else. So they called it Beasties. I don't know why, but that was it. But this was my like sort of almost a reintroduction to Transformers. And I had all the same toys, man. I had the Rhinox, I had the Scorponok, I had Megatron, like the big purple. I remember when I got that one, and then I was like, okay, I need Optimus. And I remember I got it for my birthday, and that was an epic day. It was pretty cool to have the Optimus and the Megatron going at it. But then later in life, I reconnected with the Transformers franchise through the Michael Bay movies, the first one being the most memorable. And then after that, it just lost it, became more about spectacle and less about story, which is why I always will go back to the cartoons. I really do have fond memories of Beasties. Looking back at that show, the animation, so rough, but it's still classic.
It doesn't look pretty, but it's still fun to watch.
But the story, like you said, like the story for that first season, the way they kind of implemented some of the lore of Transformers, I gotta say, it kind of did it a little bit better than this movie. But again, they're a series. But okay, we'll get into it. Now, before we transform into our discussion, I do want to just jump into a few announcements. As you know, we are in the summer of movies, and we got a lot of movies and TV shows, including our spoiler-free and spoiler-filled reviews for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We also have spoiler-free reviews for American Born Chinese Season 1, Disney's The Little Mermaid, Marvel Studios' Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Fast 10. We also have a ton of interviews out now, like our most recent interview with Sophie Thatcher. Nate had a chance to sit down with the star from the latest horror movie, The Boogeyman, as well as our interviews with Chukwudi Iwuji and Sean Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. You can catch those interviews here on podcast services of your choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. And please make sure to subscribe so you can keep up with us on all the great stuff that we got coming for you. And finally, we are so stoked to announce that we've opened up our Discord for the first time. We've got spaces to not only discuss spoilers with us about the best movies and TV shows out now, but we also have spaces for the latest news and trailers from around the Geekiverse. We've got places for you to write questions that may be featured on the podcast. We've got a What Ya channel, so you can tell us what you've been watching or what you've been listening to or reading or playing, and so much more. We can't wait to hear from you because we are Geekcentric and you can be too. So join us on Discord and let's celebrate all the things we love together. Follow the link in the show notes to come join us on our Discord server. It's going to be a good time. But with that out of the way, let's get into our spoiler-free review for Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Now, if you don't know what this movie's about, let's get you up to speed with our synopsis. Here we go. Returning to the action and spectacle that has captured moviegoers around the world, Transformers Rise of the Beast will take the audience on a 90s globetrotting adventure with the Autobots and introduce a whole new faction of Transformers, the Maximals, to join them as allies in the existing battle for Earth. This is directed by Stephen Caple Jr. and stars Anthony Ramos, Dominique Fishback, Luna Lauren Velez, Dean Scott Vasquez, Toby Wigwe, Peter Cullen, Ron Perlman, Peter Dinklage, Michelle Yeoh, Liza Koshy, John Domingo, David Zobloff, Michaela J. Rodriguez, Pete Davidson, Cristo Fernandez, and Tange Teresa. Transformers Rise of the Beast is exclusively in theaters June 9th, 2023. So this Friday, a huge thanks to our friends at Paramount Pictures Canada for inviting us out to this screening so we could see this movie and review it ahead of its release. Now, let's get into it. As we like to usually do our reviews, this is a what worked and what didn't work structure. So Darcy, why don't you kick things off? What worked for you, man?
I mean, one of the reasons why I keep going to these Transformers movies is the introduction of the new Autobots or Transformers we get. And I got to say, this one lives up to that. And with the introduction of Wheeljack and Mirage, I think are two of my favorite Transformers in a long time. And again, the character design and development behind these robots or aliens from another planet is always incredible how they manage to bring such life to a cold metallic surface. So again, that was probably one of the strongest things coming out of this movie was, again, the characters were so lovable.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the characters in one sec, but the first thing you mentioned there that kind of stuck out is the visual effects. Like we are talking about, a lengthy amount of years of Transformer movies. So, this film does take the franchise's already impressive visual effects to new heights. It's not necessarily mind-blowing, but there's some cool spectacle moments that will immerse the viewers in the world of transforming robots. And I think the CGI is incredibly detailed and more detailed than in the past. Like each frame seems like a testament to the artistry and the technical prowess of the visual effects team. And there's such an attention to detail, I find, in the rendering of the metallic textures. Like this time around, they felt a little more worn. They felt a little more, like they were lived in, not necessarily always so polished. And even just the way that they transform, there's more of an intricacy to how that looks. And I think that, again, from a visual effects standpoint, what do you expect, really? It's Transformers. This is what we're here for, like you said. But you mentioned characters. I'm going to jump into two characters that I absolutely adored, and that is Anthony Ramos and Pete Davidson. Anthony Ramos plays Noah, and Pete Davidson plays Mirage. Their chemistry on screen was like palpable. Like it was the thing that kept me hooked. I think, Ramos brings a very grounded, heartfelt energy to his portrayal of Noah, while Pete Davidson brings this high-octane, in-your-face portrayal of Mirage that captures wit and charm of the character. Their banter, their brotherhood adds such a layer of depth to the story and sort of gives it a very emotional element, throughout the film. And I think just their relationship alone showcases the ability of how these movies can blend action and heart. And I think in a lot of ways, their relationship is actually the most enjoyable and memorable part of this movie, for me at least. I wanted to see more of it. So yeah, I do agree with you. I think the characters were great. And the whole entire cast, I think it goes for the entire
everyone
cast. Yeah. I really enjoyed seeing the level of diversity amongst the cast. And this is not just from the actors, but from the voice actors as well that are featured in this movie. Dominique Fishback, who kind of plays opposite of Anthony Ramos's Noah. Elena has her own arc that runs parallel to that of Noah. She is out on her own quest and destiny, and it feels like they're both in this situation and earning,
Mm-hmm.
their right to be there. And these two human characters felt like they had purpose.
Yeah, I mean, like that was something that was like lacking in some of the later Transformers films was
Yeah.
the reasoning for the humans to be involved. It kind of felt very loose. They were just there to be there. I mean, we talked about the little girl from the last movie who, from all the trailers, seemed to be an integral part of the story, but in the actual movie, she's left by the wayside pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, they are introduced to the story and they have their stakes laid out very clearly for us so we can understand why they're involved with this otherworldly level of invasion type thing with these
Right.
robots and aliens. So yeah, this movie did a really good job of again bringing the humans to this grand scale battle, which
Yeah.
I did enjoy.
Yeah, and giving them a purpose. And like, I think in the past it's like, well, these humans aren't really gonna do anything. It's the
They're
robots
just going
that
to
are
run
gonna
away
do
from
anything.
robots.
Exactly. Whereas I think like even in Bumblebee as well, with Haley Steinfeld's character Charlie, there's a purpose towards the end that she needs to serve. And I think that, again, we see that here with Anthony Ramos's Noah and Dominique Fishback's Elena. There's a purpose to them. But yeah, the entire cast, I know, is surprise and delight cast for the voice. I said his name, Cristo Fernandez.
So good. Wheeljack was incredible.
Wheeljack. If you know that name, or if you don't know that name, but maybe you've just finished Ted Lasso season 3, he is Danny Rojas, the most charismatic, energetic soccer player on Richmond, and I was surprised and delighted to hear his voice. I think again the cast is a standout of what worked. Another thing I really enjoyed, and I think this is just more of a story element. In the past movies, we've always seen Optimus as this strong, confident leader, and I think in this movie, he's sort of portrayed with lacking that leadership. He feels the burden and weight of responsibility. I enjoyed that as a narrative element. I think that the only thing, again, as we get into what didn't work, they could have gone further with that. One last thing that worked, and then I'll see. Is there anything else that you have that worked for you?
I mean, I like the visuals and I like the characters. After that, it becomes a list of what didn't work or wasn't really well executed, in my opinion.
Well, okay, it's been online. A lot of people have been saying it. It's a nostalgic boost for a lot of 90s hip hop music, very New York driven. That works for the movie. That works really, really well for the movie. But again, it works and then it kind of dwindles. So you know what? Like we're kind of tiptoeing around it. Let's get into
dancing around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into what didn't work. Why don't you kick things off there, Darce? What didn't work for you about this movie?
I mean, again, a lot of it comes down to execution because the overall story I found engaging and stuff like that. But a lot of the decisions they made to drive this plot forward or the expositional scenes we got shoved down our throats at times really felt heavy-handed and remind me of those later Transformers movies, like 4 or 5, where it was just the humans were just there for exposition and it was just a bland story. Where again, this story feels like it had a lot more to it. It was just not executed as well as I had hoped, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest gripe as well, and probably the biggest reason why this movie feels like it won't necessarily be a memorable movie, right? Like there's moments that I like, but I don't think like it's going to be memorable. Granted, it's better than most of the other Bayhem.
Yes.
I call them the Bayhem, the Michael Bay movies. It's better than most of those. But I think the initial moments of this movie really do grab your attention. Like I said, there's a really great way that they've introduced Noah, they introduced Mirage. You got this 90s nostalgic hip hop vibe that's going. It's really, really working. However, when the story progresses, it suddenly becomes bogged down, as you were mentioning, by this heavy exposition, lengthy dialogue scenes and expositional dumps that just slow down the pacing and disrupt the momentum that felt established. It felt very focused, but then suddenly it just gets so much bigger. Just gets so much bigger.
It goes up with like no expectation. You're not ready for it at all. All of a sudden, you're in the middle of this massive story trying to figure out what's going on.
Exactly, and you need the exposition. It provides the necessary context and the background information. It feels overwhelming, and it feels like it could have been handled more effectively. Like the unfortunate imbalance, I feel like, is going to detract from others enjoying this film. Some people may not. They might just go in already anticipating this,
Hmm.
already expecting that it's going to be that. But I don't know. There's just a sense of missed potential overall with this movie. Like I was hinting at before, like, Optimus being a reluctant hero, having sort of doubts in himself, like that hasn't been explored. But that could have been a movie on its own, right?
Hmm.
Noah and Mirage's story could have been a movie on its own. The story about Elena and what she's discovering throughout this movie, that could have been a movie. But instead, it's all bundled up into this less than 2 hour runtime movie. And I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it really lands. It feels like it's quickly became like every other Transformers movie with high stakes, over the top action, and like, world-ending events, like just world-ending events that felt so big. And I don't know, like I was really hoping with something like Bumblebee that we would get something a little bit smaller and a little bit more focused. Again, it does say in the name Transformers Rise of the Beast, so it's going to be, it kind of inherently has this epic nature, but I don't know. I don't know if it needed to be. I think there's like two or three movies in this one movie.
Yes, yeah, that's what I walked out. I remember saying I felt like that could have been two movies. They could have taken the time to explore some of these plot lines and then have had these characters go through the emotional growth or character development that would be understandable why they're making different decisions by the end of the movie. Whereas this one, like we're talking about Optimus Prime, a lot of, like some of his decisions halfway through the movie don't match up with the character that they were portraying at the beginning, and
Exactly.
it's just it takes you out of it when you're questioning why all of a
Yeah.
sudden these changes are happening without getting the that emotional payoff of seeing them happen on screen. So that was probably the biggest thing. And then another thing too is, as much as I love Transformers movies and I know they're going to be big action piece spectacles and stuff like that, there was no moment to really appreciate seeing some of these classic characters come to the screen where you get them on like a nice full shot for 2 to 3 seconds, and all of a sudden they're in the background of all this chaos going on and they're moving on to another one of the Transformers. And it went by so quickly. I had a hard time focusing on the ones that we're supposed to be rooting for because they weren't giving us time to follow the journey with one of them or something like that. It was yeah, the action pieces were a bit fast and all over the place in my opinion.
Yeah, they were fast. They were all over the place. They also felt very cookie cutter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's something like I feel like we've seen something similar to this in, Revenge of the Fallen, or even maybe not even Revenge of the Fallen. Sorry, Dark Side of the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Even to a certain degree with Age of Extinction. Just, again, all of this army and led by some crazy lunatic who's out for something for themselves. Yeah, it's more or less what we've gotten. And I was really, really hoping that we would have gotten something a little more nuanced, like
Mm-hmm.
Bumblebee. Like I was
Yeah,
saying
again.
before, this is better than most of the Michael Bay movie because there is an attention to at least the characters to a certain degree, even though that they don't necessarily get to a place where it feels fulfilling for them, or as you said, they're kind of challenging themselves. You can see that there is an attention to that,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, for me at least, it's my third favorite of the Transformer movies because
Yeah, it's right there for me too.
yeah,
I mean, again, and a lot of it comes down to because I found the characters really enjoying. The
exactly,
story was engaging. It just wasn't executed well, in my opinion, because I
exactly.
found points where I was questioning why things happened, and I feel like if that's coming down to it, like I care about the story, but I had an issue with how they told it, and that's really my biggest issue with this movie is that the storytelling seemed to have fallen by the wayside, especially after the gem that Bumblebee was, because it
Absolutely.
was so charming and heartwarming and grounded. This
Yes.
one again threw all those concepts out the window basically to its detriment, I think.
Yeah, it very much felt like, one step forward, two step backwards sort of thing,
Hmm.
right? So, okay, well, listen, with that all said, I think it's time to roll out with our final thoughts and our score, which we'll be rating out of 1 to 5 Autobots. Okay? All right. Darcy, why don't you kick us off?
Well, again, I love the characters and I did enjoy the story overall. All it was just the pacing and the storytelling choices they took throughout the movie that really bogged me down and kind of took me out of it. So That being said, I did enjoy this a lot more than a lot of those later Transformers movies where the story was just an excuse to have robots fight each other. This one felt a bit more, again, purposed from the beginning. So I'll be giving this one 3 out of 5 Autobots because, again, the story was engaging, just the could have been executed a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Give me 2 movies to explore these characters instead of just the one.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. The characters are a plus. The visual effects are a plus.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the story elements that they implemented were pluses as well. I just don't think that they went the full distance with it. This movie really does bite off more than it can chew within its limited runtime, and I think that results in a lack of focus that hinders on the overall experience. I think the film is ambitiously attempting to incorporate, as you were mentioning, various storylines, characters, and themes, but ultimately struggles to give each element the attention it deserves. As a result, the narrative feels disjointed, with certain plot points and character arcs receiving insufficient development. While there are glimpses of greatness, as we were mentioning, with the characters, the music, the nostalgia, the visual effects, I think the grand scope of the film and its attempt to expand the Transformers universe, while interesting, does lack a cohesive execution and prevents it from reaching its full potential. I couldn't help when I walked out of watching this movie. I was yearning for something a little bit smaller and more focused approach, very much like the refreshing simplicity of Bumblebee. While the epic scale and great battles may have their appeal in this movie, there is something to be said about the intimacy and depth that can be achieved with a more contained narrative. And I think Bumblebee proved that a smaller scale Transformer story can be just as impactful, allowing for stronger character development and emotional resonance. Although Rise of the Beast attempts to balance its large scope, it falls victim to the weight of its own ambitions in a lot of ways. And going forward, I hope that the franchise considers returning to a more intimate storytelling approach, capturing the heart and soul of what made Bumblebee so beloved by fans. And I honestly believe, like, if you look at that movie, there's no Optimus. There's no world-ending thing. It's a smaller focused story. And with this movie, the way it kicks off with, the introduction of Noah and the introduction of Mirage, but then quickly switches into a Transformers movie, like that little bit, that little glimpse of them
It started off so well.
It was so cool.
They dropped the ball. Yeah, they
and,
went back to the old book basically.
And like, who's the focus here? Is it Noah and Mirage? Or is it Optimus and Noah? Like I was saying before, like Noah sits kind of in the middle. He's forming a new relationship with Mirage, but then he's running parallel with someone like Optimus in a lot of ways with his backstory and with Optimus's backstory. And that's also interesting. So then, do we just not do an Optimus film? Why don't we just do a Mirage film? Why does it always have to be doom and gloom? So all this to say, the movie missed the mark for me. I am a fan of the Transformers movies, as I was mentioning. But yeah, this is a solid 3 out of 5 Autobots. There's some glimpse of greatness, but it doesn't execute. It doesn't execute it and doesn't hit that mark. So, but that is it for this spoiler-free review for Transformers Rise of the Beast. A huge thanks again to our friends at Paramount Pictures Canada for inviting us to this screening so we could review this movie early and get it out to you before it hits theaters June 9th. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to us wherever you enjoy podcasts of your choice. And if you want to write into the show and let us know your thoughts on this movie, on any Transformers movie, are we crazy? Was it a great movie? Hey, you can reach out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at geekcentricyt or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. As I mentioned, we are amidst the summer of movies. We got a lot more coming. We may do some Flash stuff, but we definitely got some Elemental stuff in the works. We definitely got some indie stuff in the works, so be sure to subscribe to us. Again, wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribe to us to YouTube, everywhere. To hit the bells, hit the dings, and all that jazz. But until next time, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for this spoiler-free review. And as we say,
laters.
Peace.